Good day. Thank you for joining us for the 46th episode of the Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Desmond Richards and Krystal Cameron give thoughtful comments and insights as part of this package too. Let's start with Frankly Speaking, the commentary. Jamaica's tourism industry has rebounded from the near devastation it suffered caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, the data being put out by the tourism ministry and its agencies suggests that Jamaica's tourism industry has recovered to pre-pandemic levels as far as visitor arrivals and earnings go. That is at a faster rate than projected. On the back of record arrivals likely for October, the coming winter season could be the best ever for the country. Frankly speaking, that's phenomenal, all things considered. At the same time, investments, mainly in the creation of hotel rooms, is surging, and shovels will be put in the ground soon for several properties that were already planned pre-COVID. Frankly speaking, some of us remember the doomsday messages and the apocalyptic landscape projected for tourism as a declaration of the pandemic shut down the travel industry and threatened Jamaica's markets in the middle of 2019. Recall the shutting down of cruise tourism after several ships had become breeding grounds for COVID, and many of the cruise lines dispensed with thousands of Jamaican staff. Remember too, how some Jamaicans didn't even want our brothers and sisters to be returned from those ships, and how over 3,000 had to be repatriated here at great cost and great detailed arrangements in bringing them back home. The airports had become ghost spaces, sterile and empty, tied up in the at times confusing protocols and arrangements to keep the virus out while letting in visitors and our own people. Recall when the craft markets stopped seeing guests and there were more vendors on any one day than there were tourists for a week. Recall too, frankly speaking, how the hotels, even the better ones, were laying off staff and offering some 2 days on and 3 or 4 days off. Recall when tour bus operators were hiding from bank credit officers and debt collectors, and when still shiny buses were ending up in lots to be sold to recover debt. Frankly speaking, recall too when Jamaican tourism was on its face, but the workers in the industry up and down the island rallied, some against the advice of their friends and relatives, braved going into hotels not knowing the status of all those people they were going to serve. Recall the bus operators who took on additional costs and time to sanitize their vehicles and abide by all the protocols to look safe and be safe. Recall the leadership headed by Ed Bartlett, Minister of Tourism, trying to assure overseas markets that Jamaica was not being overrun by COVID, that we were following the protocols. No. Jamaica is reaping the benefits of the great efforts by so many people, even if we take it for granted or feel a sense of entitlement to visitors. Jamaica's tourism has come back faster than that of any other territory in the region, is what the data says. And that's commendable. I asked Mr. Bartlett, the ever optimistic Ed Bartlett, for his assessment, and this is what he said to Frankly Speaking on Friday.
So the recovery has been very strong. We are at 96% recovered in terms of stopover arrivals, but the earnings are 120% of 2019. Very significant indeed. We are expecting to end the fiscal year at 4.2 billion US, which is 500 million more than 2019. The cruise arrivals, on the other hand, have lagged behind a bit, but we expect that in 23 cruise will come back fully and that there will be full recovery on that side. However, because cruise earnings, as a function of the total US dollar earnings of tourism, is very small, it has not impacted the general revenue flows for tourism. So the bigger and better news, in fact, is the growth projections 23 and on. We're expecting to bring on board some 3,000 more rooms in 2023, and that will guarantee the arrivals that would surpass 2019. And the earnings will definitely move into possibly 150% over that period. So we know that the jobs are coming. We don't have enough workers. We're working hard and trying to review the labor market arrangements in tourism to enable a more attractive workforce, a more attractive tourism experience for the workers. We have a pension plan now.
Of course, there are several things that are wrong with tourism, not least the poor salaries paid in the industry that delivers first class and first world service. And that's something we'll come back to. But for now, frankly speaking, all the workers in tourism and the leadership in the government ought to be congratulated on the rise and rise of the industry in this patch of its return. Now, here's Desmond Richards on who are the real gangsters.
Right as we speak, the United States government is contemplating sending troops to Haiti to fight gangs. To fight gangs. But wait a minute. Trinidad and Jamaica have a bigger, a worse gang problem than Haiti. As a matter of fact, the homicide rate in Trinidad is many times higher than that in Haiti. And Jamaica is the murder capital of the Caribbean. So why the United States is not sending troops to these countries to help fight the gang problem, the gangsters? Why? Is it because the gangs in Haiti are targeting the elites? As a matter of fact, last year, the gangs in Haiti kidnapped US and Canadian missionaries. Is that the real reason why US is planning to send troops into Haiti? No. The gangs in Jamaica and the gangs in Trinidad, they are not targeting the elites. They are not kidnapping and robbing decision makers. They are not a threat to the system. No. No. They are killing whole men, children, whole women, and killing themselves while partying, smoking ganja, having a good time. They are no threat to the system. As a matter of fact, the policy, the attitude of the government, can anyone say that the attitude of this government is to fight, to cripple the gangs? No, they're not at all. Not at all. They are no threat to the system. No. By the way, tell me, what happened to the gangs, the men in suits who have been looting the treasury since 1962? What happened to them? No, they are walking free, drinking whiskey and driving their Benzes. No troops are coming to assist us with them. No, as a matter of fact, the last minister and his collaborator who were arrested They are now fighting a legal battle on the basis that they were arrested by the wrong set of policemen. Now, this is a joke. This is a joke. Who are the real gangsters in Jamaica? The men who are running around killing people. They are criminals. The real gangsters in Jamaica are at large.
That's Desmond Richards, journalist and businessman, and founder of Rebel Radio. Here now is Krystal Cameron.
Could a university put a thumb on the scales and say it's important that we ensure that men continue to receive college educations? That would be peculiar, wouldn't it? Like white men get the thumb on the scale, but people who have been kicked in the teeth by our society for centuries do not?
Well, of course, our position is that white men could not get a thumb on the scale. That sounds like a racial classification. Men could, perhaps, but not white men.
They've looked into other alternatives like socioeconomic preferences, but West Point discovered that that would actually increase the number of white men at the academy. And other race-neutral alternatives just don't work in this context for the service academies.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
When we talk about the power of melanated people, when we talk about who we really are as guys and understanding that our melanin is so powerful and it connects us in a way that the reason why they fear black, the reason why they fear is because the lack that they have of it. They have the lack of compassion. That melanin comes with compassion. Melanin comes with soul that we call it soul. We soul brothers and sisters. That's the melanin that connects us. So the people that don't have it are a little less, bringing it all the way back around to Minister Farrakhan, to where they may not have the compassion, acting out of low self-esteem. They're acting out of a deficiency. So therefore, the only way that they can act is evil. The only way they have to rob, steal, rape, kill, and
fight or flight,
in order to survive.
Exactly.
So
people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually, instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons.
In our communities of color that are most impacted. And so we have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity.
When did it become so acceptable to be so openly racist? When did it become so acceptable to openly advocate for anything that disadvantages white people and particularly white men? When did it become so acceptable to be so openly anti-meritocratic? Oh, I know. It seems to have been around the same time when it was telegraphed to the world that diversity in fact meant to be less white, that equity meant in fact to disadvantage whites, that white culture was in fact the same thing as white supremacy culture, and that it was so irredeemable as to need dismantling from the root. Only white people could be racist, you see, because you needed to have power and systems of oppression and...
Yes, diversity truly is your strength, whatever that.
Endgame. Last week, on the basis of a new position or new thinking advanced by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, I promised to offer some answers to some questions he raised on the path to making land available to the landless and dealing with squatting. Time is against me for this podcast, because I really want to push the Prime Minister's thinking in that direction. But I have the answers and will lay them out another time. Thank you for sharing this episode of Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Please keep sharing the podcast and let's have your comments on the channel. As ever, we ask you to subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Until then, I'm Franklin McKnight.